So here's the simplest program in any programming language, but Node.js is what we're using. So first I went here, I said view terminal, and that opened my terminal. And that thing on the lower end of the lower half of the screen, that's my terminal. Why? Because I type stuff in there. And the first thing I want to type is node version. And you see my version is 12.16.1. And most of the reason for doing that, once again, NODE/VERSION. Because Node, I hope you installed it on your system, but if it's not installed, nothing else is really going to work, right? Node is the programming language that executes the code. Visual Studio Code is the IDE. It's where we type the program, but then we give it to Node, and we say, Node, be a good guy, help me out here. Take my code and run it. And Node says, sure, I'm your guy, I've got your back. And it takes your code and it returns the result. So if you want to verify that on your own system, here's the thing, right? Node /version, a double hyphen version. Doesn't really do too much, but it does one very important thing, which is make sure that Node is there. Now Node is there. Now I can keep going. Now I can write program code. And now you're going to learn to program. And I'm not sure if it worked for you to click on that link and see my screen. I hope it did. But I'll also make my font bigger. I'll make my letter. And anything you want to change about Visual Studio Code, File, and then Preferences, and then Editor, Settings, Text Editor, and Font. That's just like the letters, right? The kind of letters. Maybe I'll make it up to like 40. If I make it too big, it's hard to see on the screen. But I think 44 should be okay. And now I want to make my program. So I do the following. I say File, New File, and the simplest thing I can do here in Node.js, the very simplest program ever, I can say console.log. And if you've ever done some programming before, you might know about the print statement. So that's 2 + 2. And then how do I run it? First I save it. I say File, Save, and I give it some name. I'll just call it like first program or something. And you must call it .js. That's very important. .js. You have to do that. If you don't, then well, just do it, because I don't want you to find out what's going to happen if you don't. But it's pretty bad. And I'm going to go here to my types. And you don't need to understand right now why this is. Maybe another day I'll tell you. But the type must be JavaScript. Why? Because Node.js is JavaScript. You know, the famous language from the web. It is. It's JavaScript. So I'm going to say JavaScript, and I'm going to say save. So save. And now how do I run my program? Well, I'm going to type CLS to clear the screen. And I'm going to type node. Now, you might get into this situation, right? And sometimes people panic when they're learning. They get scared. But you don't need to be scared, really. Because I type node, enter, and then what happens here? Well, it's waiting for some input. I can just press Control. I tap. So if that happens to you, which everybody does do that, it seems, when they get started, you hold the Control key. You know, the Control key, it's on your keyboard at the bottom on the left. And then the letter C, you tap it twice. So Control, C, and you do that twice. So now I'm going to, or you could also type exit, I think. Quit. Anyway, I just press Control and then tap the letter C twice, and you'll break out of there. Then you'll be back out. Now, I'm going to type dir to see which programs I have here, and these are all the programs I have in the directory. The one I just made, plus some other ones I made this morning. So you see here I typed dir. I mean, I typed it over there or something. Anyway, I typed it there, dir. And what I got as a result of typing dir, I asked for a directory, and it showed me all of the files in my directory. So first program is the one I just made, and these two are from this morning. I want to run my program. So next question, how do I run my program? Simplicity itself. I type node because I want to run, because node is another program. Node is a program, and the program I write is a program, and those two programs work together. Node takes my program and it makes it work. It executes it. So I say node, and then I type my program, first program. I can type the first 2 or 3 letters and type the tab key. So you watch this again. So I type Fi, and then you know what the tab key is, right? T-A-B. It is on your keyboard. I don't even know where it is. I touch it without thinking about it. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. On most keyboards, it is on the left most edge of the keys, and it's the 1, 2, 3 keys down from the top. That's the tab key. You know where the tab key is, just Google it. So now I should be able to press enter and run my program. Yay! It worked. Did everybody see that? So now I know for sure. Now I can believe that 2 plus 2 really is 4. I wasn't sure before, but now I believe it. So everybody sees that, right? So node, and then the name of my program, and then it runs, and it's a very simple program. It's just one line of a program. It adds 2 numbers, and console.log is what outputs it to the screen. Yeah, that's what happens. So let's go. Now we have more to do. We have to set up a web server. We have a little bit of work to do before we're ready to set up a web server. But fortunately, Node makes it super easy. All right, still no questions, so let's keep going. Now, here's the problem. Does anybody see the problem with the program I have written now? I'll show you the program if you don't see it. I'll show you the problem. I can type the up arrow key, by the way, the up arrow key, to repeat the previous command. Do you see the problem? It's not changing, right? It's keep being the same. It's not changing. It's getting boring, to be honest. So it would be better if instead of always adding 2 plus 2, I could specify other numbers to add. And that brings us to the next concept in programming, which is parameters, which are variables that can change. So a variable is something that's like a letter or an identifier that we assign some data to. I'll talk more about that in a little while. Wait. And there's another thing we can do here, because our program code has to be legal JavaScript code. Like, that's a legal code. That's fine. But, and you can see from the color coding, right? My IDE recognizes that's a proper JavaScript code. But that's a comment. And comments are good to put in programs because you can leave little notes to yourself as you're going along. So I'm going to make a comment, a reminder to myself that parameters are variables that can change. By the way, I'm going to give you my code so you can keep following along with me here. And the way in programming land that we move code around is with something called Github. If you don't know what Github is, you don't need to right now, but I'll just tell you it's a very fast way for me to get my code to you. So I'm going to take my program, and I'm going to make a GitHub repository, and all you need to do is copy from it. You don't need to make a GitHub repository, not today, maybe in another class, not today. So I'm going to make a GitHub repository, and it's something programmers use, and it's how we move code around. So I'll call this basic nodejs. I think that's a good name for my repository. And I'll make a new file. And I'll paste my code in there. So I'll call this first.js. And now I'll commit it. And what that means, you don't need to worry about it right at the minute. And now I'll send you a URL, and you can take this URL and you can put it in your browser, and you can copy my code out of it and put it in your own Node.js to get it working. So you see, you can just click on first, and you can open it, and you can copy that into your own text file in your own Visual Studio Code. So here is that link for you to go and grab that from. That's my GitHub repository. That's where I put all my good code there. I will give bonus marks to anybody who can tell me who this is. Who's the guy with the blue book? Anybody recognize the blue book, Professor? No? I'll ask you again later. Everybody should recognize that one. That's important. But I'll save that as a special treat for the end of class. All right, let's move on. It's Brown Bear. It's actually Brown Bear and the Line Friends. Yeah, so the Line Friends are pretty popular, and that's Brown Bear. That's my avatar. I see myself as being like Brown Bear. See, that's like, and that's his girlfriend, Connie the Rabbit. And yeah, anyway, so that's those guys. And they have a whole slew of friends. They have Moon, and the little bird is Sally. And anyway, you'll be running into the line characters as we go along because I put them in a lot of my slides. Everybody likes the line characters. They're nice. So anyway, hopefully you've all gotten my code now. Oh yeah, the old TV show Brown Bear. That's right. Yes. Okay. So now we want to parameterize. I'll send you for a break in a few minutes because I know at the beginning it's hard going. But I'm going to say A equals 2, and I put a semicolon at the end of it, and I say B equals 2. And now instead of always being stuck with 2 plus 2, I can say A plus B. Save. And now I'll run the program again. And now it's 4. But now I'm not always stuck with 2 plus 2. I can get wild. I can say like 4 plus 17. I mean, I can go crazy. I can do whatever I want now that I'm going good. I can put any numbers there I want. See? But Peter, you promised us you were going to add the numbers 1 to 100. You said that, and we want you to do it. All right, well, let's take a little break. We've been going hard for about an hour now. Let's give it a break till 3:20. And when we get back... Oh, thank you so much, yeah. When we get back here, I'm going to show you how to use for loops and while loops and functions. And that's about it. Once you own if then, of course. But it's not hard. Like in half an hour, you're going to learn that stuff. And then you can write most kinds of programs. Programming is not hard. It's really a handful of 5 or 6 basic things. Variables, for loops, while loops, if then, functions. That's 5 things, and you can do it all. Anyway, I'm going to go and get some water or some drink or something. We'll resume in 20 minutes. Audio test. Audio testing. All right, guys, it's 3:20. Let's hit it again. Let's see if anybody is waiting to come into the room. I guess not. I think we're all here so far. All right. Yeah, we're all here. That's good. Yay. So let's continue. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen, am I? All right, let's share the screen and let's keep going. So now we're going to work a little bit more on developing some basic JavaScript skills. Why? Because this is system application development. And in order to develop systems, we have to know databases and we have to know programming. And we've started databases and now we're starting on programming. So I think we're going in the good direction. Okay, just bring Kulbir here. Kulbir wants to come in, then we'll get going. All right, let's move on. Oh, Rajpreet Singh has a question. I don't know if I've already answered it or not. If anybody has any questions, just type them in the chat. I don't see any questions right now, so let's move on. So let's carry on with our little program here. Oh, here's Mandeep. Let's bring her in. All right, now we can carry on. So the next thing we wanted to do was to add the numbers from 1 to 100. This might seem a little bit complicated. It's not really. If you think it is, then just bear with me. If you take this code out of my GitHub and do it by yourself, soon it won't be complicated. The next thing we need to have here is a for loop, so we need to be able to repeat some set of actions numerous times. There's the basic format of a for loop, and a for loop does things many, many times. How many times? Well, that's up to you. So let's say we want to declare our starting number. And we want to count from 1 up to 100. And var is just something we put in front when we want to tell the compiler, that's Node, that's the guy who's running our program, we want to tell him that something is a variable. A variable is a value in a computer program that can change. It's like a box or a bucket. You can change what you put inside it. And we need an ending number as well. Notice the color coding. So if something is a keyword in JavaScript, it'll get a special color like that. And we'll say end number. And the end number is 100 in this case. And we said we want to add all the numbers from 1 to 100. So see, I'm using a double slash to make a comment to remind myself what I'm doing. So I'm going to say here, keep going until, well, actually, I need another variable called current number. So we'll say var current number equals the starting number, because it's going to start and then it's going to go up from there. And now we're going to say while the current number is less than, it should be less than or equal to the end number. So we're going to start at 1 and keep going till we get to 100. And what are these other two things here? Well, they don't really matter too much. I'll talk about them later. Just believe me that this is the correct formulation for a for loop. And every time we repeat the for loop, we want to increase the current number by 1 because we want to go from 1 to 100. So the current number initially started at 1 because that was the starting number, and we'll say equals current number plus 1. This is the simplest kind of program I can write. And if you're not sure, if you think it's confusing or something, then all you have to do is type this program into your own environment 4 or 5 times, and after 5 times of doing it, then you'll understand it. And we want to do something else, which is we want to add, right? Because we said we wanted to add the numbers from 1 to 100. So we need to have a variable to keep track of that. So we'll say sum, and we'll initialize it to 0, because sum is just a word that means in arithmetic the result of adding stuff. And now here we can say sum equals sum plus what? Plus the current number. Because the first time that'll be 1, and then it'll be 2 and 3 and so till we get to up to 100. So believe it or not, gentlemen and ladies, boys and girls, children of all ages, that program is going to calculate 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 ... all the way up to plus 100. Let's see the final result. So I'm going to say console.log sum. Now remember, right now we're just learning some basic Node.js, how it works, and our next step along the way to assignment 2 is going to be to hook this up to our MySQL database so we can actually, under program control, we can update the database. And then we'll hook it up with a web server, and then we'll be able to update the database from a web page. And that will be the 3-tier application. So let's run this program. So we always say save. And now I'm going to run my program again by tapping the up arrow key to repeat the previous command and enter. And the number is, the addition is in fact 5,150. I know it is because I did the formula that Rajpreet showed us before. So let me get this code out for you into GitHub, and I want everybody to jump in there and get this going on your own machine. In fact, I'm going to rename this and call it assignment 2, because we're going to keep working on this till it becomes assignment 2. And I'm going to edit this program by clicking on the pencil, and I will replace the code that's there with my new code. So your guys' job now, you're going to grab that code out of my repository, and you're going to get it running in your own Visual Studio Code. So once again, in case you don't remember what it was from before, you can go into my GitHub again. So take a minute to do that. Now there's another thing we're going to have to do to work with Node.js for connecting to our SQL database. And that's to work with functions. So a function is something that you wrap a bunch of code up into a little unit that you can reuse it. So I'm going to turn this whole thing into a function. If you don't know what a function is, Just enter the code yourself and retype it a couple of times, and then you're going to know. So I'm just basically going to take all of the stuff that I have there, and I'm going to create a function by using the keyword function, and I can call it whatever I want. I'll just call it add for right now, and then I put round brackets like that. Don't worry why we do it right now. The why part will come. Just do the practice part of it. And then I open a curly bracket, and I close the curly bracket down here. And functions have to return some value. So I'm going to say return sum. And that's a function. Well, let's try running it and see what happens. So we'll say file save. And we'll repeat our previous command. And there's going to be an error this time. Watch. And let's see if we can figure out why there's an error. Sum is not defined. And I'm not going to go too much into the theory of how programming works. Mostly I'm going to just give you the code we need to make our college enrollment system work. So in the course of doing that, we can learn about how information systems work. But I will show you a little bit of theory here. Now you see here, we're defining the word sum. We're defining the variable sum inside these brackets. So you see there we have an opening bracket, and there we have a closing bracket. Similarly here, for our for loop, we have an opening bracket there, and that ties to a closing bracket over there. Now the word sum, or the variable sum, we're using outside of the bracket, so it's out of scope. We say sum is not visible outside of the function it's declared in. See, sum is defined inside a function. But we're trying to use it outside the function, and we're not allowed to do that. But there is something we can do to get the value of sum available outside the function, and that is we can use a keyword called return. So see there I'm saying return sum. So instead of trying to use sum, which is undefined, I can just call the function, and the function is called add. So if I do that, see, I'm now doing something called invoking the function. So here, I'm declaring the function, and here I'm using the function. And the reason why I can call the function is because I'm returning something. If I took the return statement away, this would not work. But when I call the function, then whatever is specified as return is going to be available. It's going to be the value of that function. So let's try doing that and see if that works. And I think it should. So let's test it. So save. And once again 5150. So that's pretty much all the programming we need to get started building on our 3-tier application. That's going to be enough for now. We'll add more stuff later, but we don't need to add it right now. So I'll update my GitHub, and I'll give you guys a couple of minutes to copy this over and get it running, and then we'll move on. So go to my GitHub repository, get that, copy it into your file in your Visual Studio Code, and you should see how that works. You should start by now to have a little bit of an understanding of it. So I'll give you 1 minute to do that, and then we'll move on and start looking at our database. We're going to pick up what we did last week with our database. So I know last week we did work on the database and we didn't quite finish it. And we're going to start the whole thing again now. But I think this is now the third time I'm talking about it, so I'm not going to explain that much. I'll explain a little bit, but mostly we'll just emphasize on getting it going quickly. Because our next step is we're going to hook up our database into this program. Sir, can we make this 2-in-1 file? Can we make this in one file? Can you tell about the function? Oh, not a problem. Sure. Yes. Okay. Yeah, very good. Thank you for asking that. I'm going to talk about function for a little while. So here's the thing that's going on with function. And it's a good thing you're asking because, once again, this is an information systems class, right? A system development class. And this is the most basic development you can get. You can't get any more simple than this. So it's very important that we talk about it slowly and we all understand it. So let's talk about functions. Functions in Node.js. So functions are used to create reusable modules of code. Functions let us put code in a box called a function. It's not really a box. We just think about it as a place where we put it. And then we can call that function from many different places. Think of a simple example here. Well, let's go and write it. I'm just trying to think of a simple example. Let's go over to Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to make a new file. I'm going to say File, New File, and I'm going to save it and call it second. .js, and I'll make sure I'm saying that its type is JavaScript. Let's say that we wanted to make a function to tell us which number was bigger. Maybe that's a useful thing we'd like to know. Make a function to say which of two numbers is bigger. So we always start a function by using the function keyword. Keyword is a function. It's a predefined keyword. It's a special word in JavaScript we use when we want to make a function. You always just don't wonder why that is. Don't ask yourself why is that. Just tell yourself that's the way it is. So we start by using the keyword function. Give your function any name you want. I'm going to call mine elephant. Just because I want to show you it doesn't have to be any special computer name, right? Just orange, like grapefruit. You just call it anything you want. And I always send parameters. I always put round brackets after my function name. Why do I do that? That's the wrong question. Do not try to understand this. Just do the procedure. It's like driving a car. Maybe some of you guys know how to fix a car, you know how a motor works, but I think most of you do not, and you can still drive the car. You put the key in the ignition and turn it. Do you actually know what happens when you turn the key? Most people don't, but they can still drive just fine. Just follow this form. Do not wonder about why it is. And then we put the code of our function in curly brackets. We put the code in curly brackets. Oh, turn on your mic. Not a problem. Sure, hang on. Yes, exactly. It's the same as C, and it's the same as Haskell, and it's the same as Java. It's the same as Python. It's the same as everything else you can name. All right, hang on here. All right, let me unmute the mics just a second. All right, I think you should be able to talk now. I think your mic is unmuted. Go ahead and talk. Hello, can you talk? Is it working? All right, let me see. Maybe I have to unmute, and let me see if I can unmute Rajpreet's mic. Just maybe I have to do it one at a time. So Rajpreet. Oh, yeah, all right. So hang on here. So unmute. How do I make it unmute? Oh. You should now be able to unmute your mic, I think.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, hi, go ahead. Yep.
Yes. Sir, my question is that I'm not getting... Wait, sir. Wait. Yes, sir.
I think the thing is because you're echoing.
How will...
Yeah.
Yes. How I will get that where to use a function? I mean to say for which program I'm to use a function and for which program I am not to use the function. Actually, I'm unable to differentiate that when to use the function, when to not to use the function.
Okay, that's a good question. I'll give you a few examples. I'll just do some code because you can basically use it whenever you want. Nothing's going to break. Nobody will get mad at you. Generally, if you want to take a bunch of code, like 10 lines of code, and use them in many different places, because then you have a choice. Either you have to retype that code every single time, or you can put it in a function and you can just call the function. So it's for code reuse. It's when you want to reuse your code. Let me give you an example. I'll give an example which I think will make it clear here. Hang on. So let's keep going. That's a very good question. So let's see if we can fix it. So we want to say which of two numbers is bigger, right? So now how do we do that? Well, the first thing we need to do is pass parameters into our function. So we need to give it two numbers, and then it's going to say which one is bigger. So we give it two numbers, and we have a special name for those two numbers. We call them parameters. Why do we call them parameters? I have no clue why they call it. That's what it's called. So let's call these parameters here. We'll say A and B. And now we have to use another kind of a thing called an if statement. So we're going to say if A is greater than B, Then for right now, we'll just print out a little message and we'll go back and return something from the function later. Whoops, I have another comment coming in. Oh, okay, good. Yeah, so that's that. If anybody wants to ask a question, let me know. These aren't very comfortable, but if you need to talk to me, I'll put them on. Otherwise, I won't put them on because, I don't know, I just prefer not to. All right, I think after I give a couple or three examples, you'll be pretty good. So if A is greater than B, then we're just going to print out a message for right now, and we will say A is bigger. I have another comment coming in. Let's go and catch it and see what it is. Oh, somebody is waiting to enter. Okay, sorry. Hang on. I'll bring them in right now. Sorry. All right. Gurpreet, come on in. Sorry, I didn't notice that. Usually I keep that open. I just didn't see it this time. All right, we'll give her a couple of seconds to join in. All right, thank you for letting me know. Now she's in here. Good. So now we have a function, and we called it whatever we want. And we're giving it some parameters. What's a parameter? It's like if I hire somebody to work for me, I hire him to be my assistant, and I give him instructions. The parameters are the instructions we give to the function. So we have a function, I'm calling it Hawaii, and I'm giving it two values, A and B, and then I'm just going to say if A is greater than B, then output A is greater than B. A is bigger. And if that's not the case, if they're equal or if B is bigger, then in this case, this program will not do anything. So the question was, when do we use functions? And I'm going to give you 5 or 6 examples to try and make that clear. So now we've defined the function, but we're not calling the function. You have to call the function or nothing will happen. I can declare a function and never use it, and then it just won't work. So now I'm going to say Hawaii, and I'll give it like 4 and 6, or 4 and 5. And here, 4 is not bigger than 5, so I expect nothing to happen when I run this program. Let's find out if that's the case. Remember always to say save. And now I'm going to run the program by typing node and then the name of my program. And what happened? Because what did it do? Because it outputted something it shouldn't have outputted anything. Oh, actually, no, I was looking at another terminal. Hang on. Oh, I see, because I think I renamed my program. This is second, not first. Yeah, I was running first, which I haven't changed. So now I need to run my program, which is second. And nothing happened, and that's correct, because 4 is not bigger than 5. Now, if I change that to 6 and 5, now it should output and say A is bigger. So now the question is, when do I use a function? And the answer is that I use a function whenever I don't want to retype the code. Because here I'm just giving it 2 numbers. What if I wanted to check every number from 1 and 1 up to 10 and 10? So 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 10, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. What if I wanted to make a spreadsheet that looks like this? What if I wanted to run that function on all of these inputs? So instead of hard coding A and B, I want to do the following. So these are the values of A, and I also want to span it like B 1 to 10 as well. Whoops, hang on. That's going to be 2. So now for every intersection here, for every cell which intersects, I want to say is 4 greater than 4? Well, that should be no, because they're the same. Is 5 greater than 4? Yes. Is 4 greater than 3? Yes. But you see where I'm going here, right? Is 6 greater than 2? No. So I want to run my function for every number on A and B from 1, 1 up to 10, 10. And if I did not have functions, I think that would not be very easy to do. But I do have functions. So let's first of all build out our function a little bit. So here we're going to say so instead of putting in A in quote marks, we'll let A be whatever's the value of the parameter we passed in. Then we're going to say is bigger than But what if that's not true, though? What if it's the other way around? What if B is bigger? How do I handle that? So now I can say if B is bigger than A, then here I would say B is bigger than A. Now there's one case I have not caught here, which is what if they're the same? We'll get to that in a minute. What if A and B are the same? What if A equals B? But first, let's test our code. So now I'm going to say 5 and 6. So let's see what it's going to do for that. Always remember to save and run. And 6 is bigger than 5. You see, that's correct. That did the job properly. What if here I say 8 and 6? Eight is bigger than 6. So you guys see how that works, right? But what if I give it identical numbers? What if I give it 6 and 6? What's it going to do in this case, do you think? Well, that's right. I'm building up. Yeah, Rajpreet, that's correct. We are getting to the else statement. We'll be there in a minute. But I think you probably know this stuff a bit, and maybe some of your classmates, I'm just helping them to get there. But you're right, actually. What Rajpreet said is correct. So let's see here. So in this case, it's not outputting anything, which is what we expect, because they're the same. Okay, so now let's do the following. Now we're going to say if B equals to A. And in computer talking, twice, 2 equal signs tests for equality. 1 equal sign assigns a value, but 2 equal signs is tests if they're the same. So now let's check it. So now we'll say save. And it's saying 6 is bigger than 6. Oh yeah, so I should have changed that to equal. 6 is equal to. A is equal to B. Try again. 6 is equal to 6. All right, so we've now written a function, and we can give it any set of parameters, and it's going to work. But Rajpreet asked a good question. He said, well, when do I need a function? He said, I'm not sure. And now I'm going to show you. So watch this. So suppose instead of hard coding the values of A and B, I'm going to put it in a loop because I want to span from A1 up to A10 and B1 up to B10. Well, how do I do that? I can use a for loop. Let's see. And in fact, I'm going to use nested for loops. So I'll say for A equals 1, and then I want to go up till 10, so I'll say go until keep going as long as A is less than or equal to 10. And I'll say increase A each time, and a shorthand syntax we use is A++. That just means every time you touch A, increase it by 1. And this will be pretty good, except it doesn't solve the problem of B. So now we have to do one more thing to solve the problem of B. And we have to write another for loop, and we have to make them nested for loops. So now here, within the A for loop, we're going to write another for loop. We're going to say for B equals 1, B is less than or equal to 10, B++, and then every time the outer for loop runs once, the inner for loop will run 10 times. So A is 1, and then we'll go B1 to B10. A becomes 2, then again B1 to B10, all the way up to A is 10, B1 to B10. And if you're not sure what I mean, let's see about that. So another thing I would like to know here is I want to dump out the well, actually, no, I'm already dumping out the variables because it's here. All right, I'm going to give this code to you guys, and you try running it, because watching me isn't going to get you too far. So I'm going to put this in my GitHub. And I'll call it second.js, I guess. It's probably a good name. All right, so everybody go over there, copy the code. I'll give you 1 minute to try running it, and then we will do it together. Okay, go get my code and run it and see what happens. So Rajpreet, are you starting to see it now? You asked when do you want to use a function, and my suggestion is whenever you want to take a large amount of code. See, that's not too long, but that could be like hundreds of lines long. And by just calling that one statement right there, I can get all of this code to run. It's like packing it in a little box, and then I can just use the box whenever I need it. And I can get all the code, maybe maybe thousands of lines of code to run by just invoking the function name. Let's see what that looks like. So initially there we're starting with 1, 1, 2, 1, all the way up to 9, 1, and 10, 1. So it's starting by saying 1 is equal to 1, and then everything else is bigger. And at the very end here, we're saying 10 is bigger than 9, all the way till the end, which is 10 is equal to 10. So I know for some of you this might be new stuff, but it's stuff we have to learn, right? We don't have a yes or no decision on this stuff. This is stuff we have to figure out here. So let me see let me just check how we're doing for time. Okay, we have our ethics class at 5 o'clock, and now it's 4 o'clock. Because I really do want, before we're done today, it would be very nice if we could connect to our SQL database. That would be great. And we have the code to do it. And now you guys basically know the basic structure of a Node program. So let's take a break till 4:15. Let's give it a 15-minute break. And when we come back, we're going to go back and we're going to touch the SQL database again. And then Peanut, you're here to say hello. Bia, Peanut, you want to say hello to the gang? Bia. Okay. See, this is Peanut. He helps me run these classes. All right, Peanut, let's send them a message, and then we can go and take a little break. All right, guys, so we're on break until 4:15. Yes, they're saying hi to you. Yeah, not a problem, not a problem. So, actually, was I running my video the whole time? Okay, guys, I didn't realize I was actually running the video for the past